Your thoughts on, where the series sits right now and the possibility of Florida back in their home barn, rallying and finding a way back into it?
It's an uphill battle. That's for sure. Like, Vegas completely dominated that last game. And, for me, they got to help themselves, the Panthers, first of all. Like, before you can even look at how do you react to what Vegas is doing to you, you got to help yourself. And the amount of penalties they've taken, times they put themselves shorthanded, it's way too much. And they're trying to bait Vegas into this thing that's just not working. And they're getting frustrated. So, like, I look at Bobrovsky and how much of it's on him. Well, he's been okay. He's obviously not been the superhuman goalie that he was in the last couple rounds, but like, he's been beat 4 times on screenshots. All right, in 2 games, he was beat 5 times on screenshots in the first 3 rounds. So that's a big uptick. Well, 3 of those screens have been by his own players. So you got to help your goalie. You got to be better defensively in front of him. You got to stay out of the box. And then we're talking about, Vegas and how you can try to counterattack what they're doing.
So, Mike, when you stare at the numbers, and you mentioned a few things, including Bobrovsky, and if he plays better and gives up less goals high, we get all that. But was there signs in those first 2 games where you saw the numbers and said, Florida, I don't think can overcome this?
You know what? It's a funny thing is that the first game, Florida was right there with them at even strength, and it was tied, 2-2 after the first 2 periods. But at even strength, I mean, it was just the penalties that really killed them, and things got away from them in the third. Just from a numbers standpoint of quality shots, different chance types, Florida's actually producing more off the rush than Vegas is. They're not getting blown out of the water, I guess, to the extent that you would maybe think, given, watching the games and seeing, 3 or more goal differentials in both of them. Some of that score effects and what have you, but there's definitely been stretches where, again, they put themselves in the box and they completely get out of any kind of rhythm. They're missing, like, Matthew Tkachuk has literally been in the penalty box more than he's been on the ice through 2 games. Like, it's one of your best players. So. Yeah. I don't think it's like, well, Vegas is so insurmountable because they're doing this thing to Florida that Florida can't figure out. Florida's frustrated. And I go back to the West final where Dallas, like, remember, they lost their marbles in game 3, Jamie Benn, the cross check, and they're taking penalty. Like, Vegas frustrates the hell out of you because you can't get inside on that defense and on that team, and you start to lose it a little bit. Dallas finally reacted, I think, appropriately, and they won a couple games, but it was too late by then because they were down 3-0. I think Florida, that game has to happen for them in game 3 next game, as opposed to what Dallas was, which was game 4.
That's a really good point. You can see these teams just push, and, that violent outburst does not seem to be the solution to Vegas. I did want to talk about one violent outburst, though. It was Jack Eichel getting hit by Tkachuk. You're, someone who, Kip mentioned numbers and stuff. We've been having Conn Smythe conversations. That, to me, was a pretty defining moment for Eichel in terms of just showing a willingness to take a hit, get back into it, and not shy away the next time out. I don't think he's at the top of people's Conn Smythe list at this point. Where does he sit for you? How has he performed versus expectations in the playoffs?
Man, he's at the top of my list.
He is at the top of your list.
Yeah, like, Marchessault's right there. The guy's got 12 in his last 12. He's been great. Aiden Hill is making a heck of a case. He's been fantastic too. Look, I'll put it this way. If you had him at the top of your list, I wouldn't disagree with you. But I don't think there's a consensus number 1 right now.
Right.
Because, again, it's not just the points, and he leads the team in points, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Did a game or 2 ago anyways. His overall impact in the game has been significant and meaningful. We watched an empty net goal in game 1. He's stripping the guy of the puck. He did that against Connor McDavid for an empty net goal in the Edmonton series. Like, his impact in every zone has stood out, and it's been way better than it's been, with him in the past, where it wasn't bad. It's just he's taken it to another level. So to do that and still score as much as he has, and show up in those big moments like you talked about, I don't know how you couldn't have him right up there. He's been incredible for them. And the funny thing, like I'm watching that game, and I was actually building a little video package that I was going to tweet out just on how good he is at protecting the puck and using his body to shield guys away and make plays. Like it's kind of like Draisaitl in a way where he does that. And then he gets blown up. So I'm like, maybe the puck protection angle will wait another game. But yeah, no, he's been awesome.
We're talking to Mike Kelly, hockey analyst and a analytic expert with the NHL Network and Sport Logic. You mentioned Aiden Hill, and we are talking about maybe one of the most successful small sample size in Stanley Cup history.
Yeah.
And he's 27 years old. He's going to be a UFA. And someone mentioned to me that he's 6'6", and I'm like, oh my God, is he really? Like, that is a big goaltender. Right. And I'm just wondering, Mike, where would he fit in the equation of available goalies for you this summer?
I think you have to be careful. I would say that. Like if I'm working in a front office and I'm in an analytics role or preparing a report, advising, whatever, I'd say you have to be careful, not to be blinded a little bit too much by a small sample. And he's been great. Like I often talk with Vegas and other teams too. Wow, do they ever help their goalie, right? By insulating them and not allowing a ton of quality chances. And that's true. On top of that, he has been great. Every bit of accolades he's getting, he should be getting right now. But like you said, he's goalie in his mid to late 20s. It is a small sample. And if this turns into, okay, free agent, whether it's Vegas, re-signing him or another team signs him, and it's, 4 or 5 years and whatever, 4 or 5, like big contract, I wouldn't do it. I'd be careful about that. I had a friend of mine who knows a lot about goaltending, who texted me a round ago just saying, like, I know this guy's playing great, but technically I don't love him as a goalie. And, who am I to say? I'm certainly no goalie expert in that sense, but I'd be careful is all. And I hate kind of saying that because of how great he's been. I don't want to take anything away from it. It's just, it is a small sample, like you said.
Mike, what do you think about the idea that there are, I'm turning back to Toronto here, being a Leaf show and thinking about some comments Brad Treliving has made since coming here about how, guys that get you through the regular season and then there's guys in the playoffs who can help you get through there, a different style of player. The Leafs have some decisions to make on guys. I think, you got Michael Bunting's a UFA, David Kampf needs a new contract. What do you think a priority for this Leafs team should be in signing their UFAs? Do you think it is a different style of player that they need in the playoffs, or can they continue to kind of, just get in again and then you never know what happens?
Look, it's a great question. I'm not a believer of just build kind of a really good regular season team and eventually it'll be your time. There's certainly some evidence to support that. I do think that the game is quite different in the playoffs in certain areas that are meaningful and significant. It's funny you bring this up because I'm literally finishing a presentation I'm doing for an analytics conference in Sweden in a couple of days on part of it, on the differences between regular season and playoffs. Mm-hmm. There are things that change to a degree that I would say are meaningful that relate to giving the puck up, like not playing this pure puck possession game, having to battle for it, having to do kind of those gritty type things. But this is where, and I'm not a believer that the Leafs should run it back either. I've never been a believer that they should, run it back with the core four. I think there's too many gaps there. I guess my answer to your question would be, I think the blue line is what needs more work than anything else. And we'll see what kind of happens there. But yeah, I believe that there are big differences in the playoffs. I don't think, and I'll share a couple things with you. So Tampa Bay, the year they got swept by Columbus, next year they win the Cup, right? Yeah. Florida wins the President's Trophy, gets abused by Tampa Bay in the second round. They can't score, and now they're in the Cup Final. There's several reasons, but commonalities there are they went from pure let's carry it out, carry it in, skill it up kind of type game to we need to give it up and mitigate risk and know how to get it back. and it happened year over year like that. So I think there is an element of that, and this is where I get conflicted a bit, because I look at guys like Matthews and Marner, who have had trouble scoring and producing in big games, big moments, but they're really good at those things in general. So look, it's a tricky one.